Gosztola, and I'm the managing editor for Shadowproof, also the curator of the Dissenter newsletter. And I'm here to interview and speak with Matthew Ho. He's coming back. He's a whistleblower. He's also a disabled Marine veteran. He's also the Green Party candidate for U.S. Senate in North Carolina, and he filed a lawsuit after the Democratic Party controlled state board of elections, blocked him from appearing on the ballot, blocked another candidate, blocked the entire Green Party from having their candidates recognized on the 2022 midterm ballot. So thank you for joining me to talk about your lawsuit.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. It's great to see you.
All right. So we did a whole lot of discussion about the voter intimidation. We'll get into some more of those details, but just for people who are coming to this and maybe don't know, you may want to, if you're not sure about all the details, go back to an earlier interview in which you laid out, some of the catalysts for what you were fighting and why you were removed from the ballot. But it may become pretty apparent once we have this discussion, what exactly is going on. But, now you're in the phase where you have to engage in this lawfare that the Democratic Party wants to get you sucked into, and you have to defend your right to appear on the ballot. But why don't you just very briefly tell people what you are asking for from this federal court? You filed it in what's the jurisdiction? I guess it doesn't matter. It's in a federal court.
Eastern District of North Carolina. So a federal court. We filed today against the North Carolina State Board of Elections. North Carolina Green Party is a plaintiff. I'm a plaintiff. Michael Trudeau, who is running for the state Senate with the North Carolina Green Party, is a plaintiff. And then we have a number of other plaintiffs who either were petition gatherers for us or petition signers, because their constitutional rights were violated as well. So we are seeking to have the court intervene, immediately certify us, and then place our candidates on the ballot, and then pursue other actions as the court deems fit. But this all stems from our denial and our certification denial by the State Board of Elections, which was an incredibly brazen episode where there was no due process afforded. The case was not made with any detail, any evidence, any specifics as to why we should not be certified. It all really came down to the fact that because there were some irregularities, as they described them, within the unverified signatures, so signatures that had already not been validated by the counties. And if people are not familiar with petitioning, whenever you petition, you're going to have signatures that are not going to count. That's just the way it is. Not here in North Carolina, but across the country. If you look historically, it's about a 75% verification rate. So, and this is well known, that you collect 4 signatures, only 3 are going to count. One's going to get thrown out because the address is wrong. The person thinks they're registered. They're not registered, all kinds of reasons, but nothing nefarious and certainly nothing organized. And so the State Board of Elections, they took our signatures after the counties had done their work. And as far as we can tell, and we've heard this from people at the State Board of Elections, as well as from other people within political parties in North Carolina, the State Board of Elections has never looked at what the county has done in the manner they did with us. So what we were experiencing was not standard. It was unprecedented and obviously targeted towards us. And what they said was, because you have these irregularities, and we knew about 200 signatures they were talking about within the group of signatures that had never been verified again. So they said, because you have these irregularities, there's a potential that there could be more. And because there could be more, we have to investigate. But because tomorrow is the deadline, because they waited until June 30th to hold their certification hearing when the deadline for certification was July 1st, because there could be more, we need more time. But tomorrow's the deadline. So because we have no more time, we can't certify you. And so they denied us. And all throughout this, they denied us due process. Again, they didn't show us the evidence. It was, again, completely and brazenly partisan. The 3 Democrats voted against us. The 2 Republicans voted for us. And so back to this point, we're now in court to try and get our rightful spot on the ballot.
And your request to the court is that the they order the state board of elections to certify you as a party and make sure you appear on the ballot.
That's correct. That's correct. And that should be fairly clear. If people want to read the complaint, it's on our website, it's on our Twitter, on our Facebook. Certainly, it lays out very factually what has occurred here. But basically, look, we collected more than 2,100 more signatures than we needed to get on the ballot. Those signatures are not in doubt. There's never been any evidence put forward to potentially imply that they are in doubt. And so the resulting not being certified has no basis in any type of objective decision making. It's all based in partisan politics.
And the grounds for challenging is also that the First Amendment rights of you and the other plaintiffs were violated, and then also that due process rights were violated. That, you know, at no time are you given any, as you've been saying here, you're given no opportunity to challenge and have an opportunity to alter the path that the State Board of Elections is taking. They don't really, yeah,
and it just happened again today. So the State Board of Elections had a certification here, not certification. They had a board meeting today. The State Board of Elections did, and we were not notified that we would be discussed. No one contacted us or our attorney, and it was not on the agenda. There was, look, last night, there's nothing about the Green Party on the agenda. So maybe we should have had somebody watching just in case, but they clearly would not have a discussion without us being involved after everything that's occurred. There's no way they would do that. And of course they did. And it wasn't an ad hoc conversation. It wasn't like a spontaneous, somebody brought us up and then they discussed it. No, there was an actual presentation put forward by the State Board of Elections, right? I mean, so again, the bad faith that continues. When I mentioned the July 1st deadline earlier, where there is a statutory July 1st deadline for us to be certified. And so the state held their certification hearing on June 30th, which would have been fine if that was the only thing that had to happen. But in addition to being certified, after being certified, we would have to go and have an organizing convention or a nominating convention. We'd have to have our people go and register as Green Party affiliated. And then we'd have to have our nominees, our candidates, go and fill out forms for candidacy. And so even like on that, where it's like, look, you had your certification hearing on the 30th. Even if you had certified us, you're giving us a day to do all these other things. So just, again, throughout, it's been just one bad faith demonstration after another that just comes back to the idea, come back to the reality that this is a partisan effort to keep us off the ballot. And then when you see how the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee is involved, the Elias Law Firm, which is the biggest and most powerful law firm the Democratic Party has, and then as we put forward in our complaint, the connection between the Elias Law Group and the governor's office, which is an executive agency, supposed to be nonpartisan. It is. It's very clear that this was a coordinated and deliberate effort to ensure that we were not going to be on the ballot. And it's not about me. It's not about the Green Party. It's to make sure that our issues and the people that we represent are not on the ballot, that there would not be single payer, there would not be rent control, there would not be annually adjusted wages, an end to the war on drugs, any of those things, because those things are incredible dangers to the profits of the donors that are the foundation of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as well.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to raise with you, which is you have this example here. And we talked a bit about this in our earlier interview. For those who follow the channel, maybe you may feel like we're having this part of the conversation again unnecessarily, but I don't think so, because I find it really stunning that a law firm or any group really can submit a public records request and get copies of petitions with a bunch of private information on them, and then use that information to contact the people who signed those petitions and then tell them that we believe you should remove your signature from the petition you signed because it would be, in our view, a mistake, and use it to further their own agenda. I don't know what people's positions are when it comes to democracy, but it certainly seems very antithetical to all kinds of principles and values we're supposed to hold dear when it comes to freedom and democracy. So you can react to that, but also you have this example tied to it where, apparently this intern that you name at who works in the office of the North Carolina governor, Roy Cooper, is submitting a public records request that almost identically matches what the Elias Law Group is doing, which suggests some kind of coordination.
Yeah.
And the Democratic Party is all over this. So the idea that, you're just, we're just making sure you dot the I's and you cross those T's when you're doing your petition signature gathering. The idea that they're just doing due diligence does not really bear out when you look at what you were subjected to.
Correct. So the Elias Law Group, as you said, Kevin, someone from the governor's office, and we named that person in the complaint, puts in a public records request, and then the Elias Law Group uses an identical in the wording and structure and everything else to request the same thing. So almost like a copy and paste job. Don't worry about Elias Law Group. We've already done the work for you. Here you go. With their calling people, texting people, showing up at their homes to try and get people to remove their names. I mean, it's very insidious because, and this is where you get into issues of real fraud, unlike the fraud we've been falsely smeared with, actual real fraud, where the Elias Law Group and the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee were calling people, and they were sometimes saying they were Democrats. Other times they refused to say who they were, but they were also calling people and saying that they were with the Green Party and telling people I'm with the Green Party. We want you to take your name off because this could be a danger to helping elect Republicans. And, and then other times too, as we know, they were saying they're from the Secretary of State's office or the State Board of Elections. And when they did that, they would say, we're checking about fraud. So that would frighten people. And they were trying to get people to take their names off, through a fear mongering harassment. And it's not very successful. As we know, only 3 people have signed affidavits saying that they never signed our petition out of 22,500 signatures we collected. It's interesting to me that we were out there for months. We talked to tens of thousands of people. Like, we got 22,500 signatures. So we spoke to at least probably twice as many people as that. Not at any point did anyone ever contact a county or the State Board of Elections and say, these guys are up to something shady. These guys are up to no good. I feel like they were out there misleading or misrepresenting themselves, because we weren't. And as soon as the Elias Law Group gets down here, though, all of a sudden complaints start about us. All pass through the Elias Law Group. No one calling on their own to a county board of election or state. Everything comes through the Elias Law Group. What does happen, though, to juxtapose that, is that people start calling the State Board of Elections and the County Board of Elections to complain about the Elias Law Group contacting them, lying to them, and trying to get them to remove their names for, again, using public records for overtly political purposes.
So there's 2 things I want to raise and get your response to. So first, if you watch, you observed the meeting in which they blocked you and didn't certify you. And I noticed that there was a clear message that the State Board of Elections was going to come after paying people to go around and gather signatures for petitions per signature, that they indicated that they would like to come up with some kind of a rule in the state that said you couldn't pay people, hire them as contractors or subcontractors. And you worked with a couple firms. Anyways, this is standard. All 50 states have to hire. You're not just, you can do volunteers. You might be lucky if you have links to grassroots activists. So you're probably more fortunate than some other Green Party candidates when it comes to being able to go around and seek signatures. You also have a public profile, but a lot of people probably would need to hire some firm to go out and get those signatures. And those people who do it would have to be paid. Otherwise, they're not going to stand out there by the train station or the Target or the local grocery store and try to get signatures on the corner for hours upon hours for weeks so that you can appear on the ballot. And the Democratic Party knows this, so that's why they're trying to make it so that you can't pay people for their work. And it is work. It's a job. I have some background and experience. I did it when I was much younger for a few weeks during a summer. So you can respond to that if you want, but I also want to put in there that the voter intimidation clearly worked, because you have an example there, although it didn't work to the extent that I think the Democratic Party operatives wanted, or the Elias law firm wanted. You have a clear example where someone who was fraudulently told that the Green Party was calling them, that person said, I'm a Green Party person. Yep. He emails your party and says, hey, I want my name off the ballot because I actually am afraid that I'm going to give Republicans an edge.
Right, exactly. I mean, and I think there were a total of 140 people who agreed to have their names taken off the ballot for a variety of different reasons. How many were lied to, we don't know. We know that, again, we know that there are all 3 who said that we lied to them, which is, again, 3 out of 22,500. So you can, and these being brought to us by the Elias law firm, so you can take that what it's worth. With this idea of paying people for signatures, I'm a first-time candidate. I thought that, look, all we got to do is go out there with some clipboards and get our volunteers, and we hit the farmer's market. And absolutely not. I mean, the petition gathering process is arduous. It's meant to be that way. It's meant to keep people and parties off the ballot that the Democrats and Republicans don't want on the ballot. You're exactly right, Kevin. To do this requires thousands of hours of work, particularly when you're trying to get 14,000 verified signatures, which means you got to collect about 20,000 signatures. So we did. We had hundreds of people involved in this effort. Many of them were volunteers who did fantastic work. A lot of our people, though, were our staff members, our party members, people part of our movement, socialists, independents, leftists, who, just like you said, who we needed to be out there for 10, 20, 30 hours a week and couldn't afford to do that otherwise. So we raised the money and we paid those people directly. Almost all of them we paid by hour. $20 an hour is what we were paying people. And they were able then to afford to be out there to do the work they wanted to be doing. And it worked for our benefit, because we had people out there who were collecting the signatures that were then canvassing for us, who knew our issues, who could talk to people and also could listen. So we had a really effective grassroots campaign to go out there and meet people. And that accounted for about 95% of our work. And then 5% of our work came through a petitioning firm that we brought in towards the end. We had hired one early on, and they delivered 50 signatures total. So, but then we brought on one towards the end, and they brought in about 5% of our total. Because we wanted to make sure that we had that buffer, because again, you can't just get the required number. You have to get a surplus number in order to make sure you're going to meet your threshold, your requirement. So we did. We brought it, and they counted about 5%. But the petition gathering industry is something that's tens of millions of dollars, probably hundreds of millions of dollars a year. In states like California, in Oregon, in Maine, I think probably Florida, they do it, where you have ballot referendums. You see that there's this industry that exists that is tied into the larger, it's emblematic of how money controls our politics. And so if you're the Democrats or the Republicans, or if you are a corporation like Uber, because Uber used these people to fight against their workers in a ballot referendum a couple of years ago in California, you can afford to pay people $7, $8, $9, $10 a signature. And that's what they do in those states. A person I know in Oregon told me, look, if you don't have at least $100,000 to begin with, don't even think about trying to get something on the ballot, because you can't afford to do it. So that's the whole idea of this, how this is part of ensuring that ballot access is not fair and it's exclusionary, and that helps the two-party system stay in power. Because if you don't have the money, you're not going to be able to do this.
Okay. Well, I just want to mention that I put in a records request to the State Board of Elections, and they have 10 business days to respond to me. I was seeking any records of communications between them and the Elias Law Group, and tomorrow's the 10th day. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm curious what kind of a response I get. I'm well versed in what happens on the national level and what kind of thing they can tell you. I'm wondering if they say something about your lawsuit as like a reason why they can't fulfill the records request. It would be
Yeah.
something. It'd be something.
I don't know. I have no idea. Is that I mean, you know this stuff. Would that be something
Well,
that they would do?
I don't know if it would be covered, but to me, like if they could claim that they were in an ongoing lawsuit and maybe that material is not something they make public. I don't know. But that being said, I have a couple questions for you before I let you go. So
Sure.
just so everybody's clear, what's the way forward here? Is it, I guess those who watch this far into the interview may be thinking, so is there any way that you get on the ballot? And what do you say to them?
Yeah, no, we're very confident we're getting on the ballot. I mean, the facts as laid out are very clear. And the amount of support we've had from people shows that, you know, we're not crazy here. People who look at this objectively, people are saying, yes, you should be on the ballot, whether or not they agree with us or not. Basically, the only people who don't agree with this are Democratic Party loyalists and partisans. That's really the only people I've come across these last couple of weeks who say you shouldn't be on the ballot. I just actually did an interview earlier with a guy who is the he's a director of the John Locke Foundation, and John Locke Foundation is a very conservative organization. And we were talking about that. We probably don't agree on anything, you know, but we do agree on this. You know, we do agree on this idea that people should have a right to vote for who they want to vote for, and that no one is entitled to votes, that parties and candidates must earn votes. So the way forward is with this lawsuit. We expect there to be other challenges. Of course, if we win, you know, the state will appeal. The state always seems to appeal, right? I mean, they're not going to. And then we'll have to face whatever the Democratic Party and the Elias law firm bring as well in terms of their challenges. Because once we are certified, then outside parties can then challenge that certification. So I think this will be a multi-level court fight for us. But it's a good fight, man. It's a fight that we're happy for. Of course, I'd rather be talking about healthcare and housing and wages, as opposed to, you know, hey, Matt, when did you guys stop committing fraud? You know, like that kind of thing. But it's a good fight. It's a necessary fight. And it's a fight that I am and our folks are excited for, because this proves our point. And this is a really worthy adversary here. This is the Democratic Party machine. By extension, it is the two-party system and everything that represents. So if people can support us, because we need the support, please go to MatthewHoferSenate.org. Please donate, because we are in this David versus Goliath fight and we need help. They will do everything they can to drag it out, to not just for the timeline, but to exhaust us, to make it so that we can't continue fighting. So we need help. Please donate, and please encourage others to donate.
But they're fighting you, which is remarkable. They're not ignoring you. They're not in that phase of the progression. They're in the fight you phase, and then usually after they fight you, you're supposed to win. That's what I've been told when you go through that progression. And I imagine you've had quite an uptick in media requests that they're actually helping you get attention to your Green Party campaign. So even though you're talking about something that isn't about the issues that you want to discuss with voters, and that you want to show voters that you're on their side. I mean, I'm seeing you on all kinds of progressive podcasts that 10 years ago, those people wouldn't have cared at all, but it tells you where we are right now in politics. So let me throw a question to you to end, just so we can make the point that, you know, your campaign it's not just about getting on the ballot. It's not just fighting Democrats. It's not just, you know, proving that third parties can run for election. It's, you know, it's about speaking to these issues that really do matter and showing that people deserve an alternative and a choice between a Republican and a Democrat who have no distinguishing features when it comes to a lot of these issues. And I just feel like asking you, since you have a background in the State Department and you follow foreign policy and you also follow its impact on people's working lives, that it's worth asking you before I let you go. What's your response to what we saw with Joe Biden and his trip to Saudi Arabia and how he's pandering to Mohammed bin Salman and the things he's claiming that must be done by the U.S. government to cozy up with this regime because you know, we need it here, supposedly, that we need our economy, that it's for our economy that we have to have these close ties, despite what we know about what the Saudi Arabian kingdom does.
Right. And Israel as well. I mean, today
Yeah,
he was in
right.
Israel, and then tomorrow he will go and have some farcical visit to the West Bank, um, where the people live under occupation and, in modern apartheid. So the fact that all he needed to do is he should have gone to visit Egypt as well, just to hit the trifecta, right? The three biggest allies, certainly in terms of money, Israel, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. Really, he should have hit Egypt just to make it consistent and thorough. It's despicable. It's disgusting. It's the reasons why I'm doing this so much. We've talked about this before, Kevin. So much of this is about my background, about being in the wars, which I regret and I'm ashamed of. But the fact that we've had no accountability whatsoever for those wars, we have a foreign policy that is part megalomania and part a get-rich-quick scheme. Maybe not get rich quick, but certainly get rich for the corporations of war, for the fossil fuel industry, for the banks, etc. Look, almost 75% of the world's dictators. If you go to Freedom House and you look at the list of who they say are dictatorships, who are the military regimes and authoritarian regimes and monarchies out there, you go and look, and I think there's 52 or so of those nations. And the United States gives military assistance to something like 43 of them. It's almost 75%. You know what I mean? So that's just the consistency of American policy. And, the brutalization, the suffering, the murder of people for corporate profits and for megalomania. And the same can be said here at home because, I'm a member of Veterans for Peace. And one of our things is that the wars overseas are mirrors of the wars here at home. You can say the same exact thing, whether it is the war against black and brown folks, whether it's the war against workers, all this is meant to squeeze everything to the top to make sure that the corporations and the banks benefit. And then, of course, you have in government, whether it be Democrat or Republican, these people who populate our government are nothing more than influence traders or access peddlers. That's all they are. I mean, and so that's the criminal nature of our government, a kleptocracy, if you will. And so Biden going to Saudi Arabia, going to Israel, that puts that very much in focus. And of course, the horrible human rights circumstances, the criminality of those governments, and for, of course, Biden to show up and to kiss the ring of the leaders of both countries is revolting.
And the lie that this has to be done in order to set our economy right and maybe avert a deeper recession. Like we aren't, capable and don't have the resources and funds alone to take care of people. We totally can take care of working people without pandering to brutal dictatorships and governments that are engaged in, apartheid and other sorts of horrible things. So,
yeah, I mean, and that's one of the reasons for, implementing a Green New Deal, right? I mean, is that if we had done that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, rather than go to war in Iraq and Afghanistan, we had done a Green New Deal. One, we would have saved money, probably a couple $1 trillion, but we would also no longer have those ties to countries like Saudi Arabia. And we certainly wouldn't need to be going to war in Europe over the natural gas concerns of who's going to sell what to who. So it is. I mean, the whole thing is dirty and it's ruinous. And, you add in the climate aspect, and we are in very real existential danger here.
Yes, and that's why we need you. But yet, for a party that talks a lot about how much they don't like being gaslit, you sure seem to be getting gaslit almost on a repeated basis in the last few weeks, couple of months here.
Yeah,
I'm sure. You've had, it seems like what you've gone through, you've had many 2 + 2 = 5 moments that they've been trying to get you to doubt the reality of what you're doing in your operation. But I'm glad that you're fighting. I'm glad people can see this. I just want to note a comment from somebody as we wrap up that mentioned that the Pennsylvania Democrats in 2020 kicked the Green Party off the ballot, even delaying sending out mail-in ballots until they did. That example,
right?
I know that probably happened, And even though I hadn't heard that before, and so I just think covering this and talking to you is really crucial. And I thank everyone for listening to you. I'll give you a chance to give any final parting thoughts you might want. But just the fact that people recognize that this is happening in all 50 states, and recognize the manipulation by both of the political parties that the Democrats were talking about here, and a lot of us who have this visceral disgust for what the Democrats do to block progress also need to understand that one of the reasons why you have so much difficulty is because the Republicans also use you too. Also want to boost the Green Party to spoil the Democratic Party, which makes it harder for the Green Party to grow as an alternative. And they know what they're doing, and they're both working in tandem to keep this brutal status quo.
That's correct. And the Democrats are doing the same thing. They're both using dark money, these super PACs, to support candidates and parties that supposedly in their calculus help them defeat the other side, a kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. And yeah, I mean, it just goes back and it just shows how corrupt and undemocratic and harmful the whole two-party system is. I just want to end by saying to folks out there, and please support us. Please donate. Again, we're in this David and Goliath fight. I need your help. Please go to MatthewHoferSenate.org. Incredibly sincere about this. But also, too, please support people like Kevin. I've spoken about this before. I don't believe in a political party for its own purposes. I believe in it as being part, one arm of a larger body. And the nucleus, the center of that body, is communication, media, information, education, the stuff that Kevin does. If we don't have that, we cannot work together. We'll just basically fly apart. And so we're in a position now, it really scares them. We couldn't do this 10 years ago. We would have tried on Skype and it would have been a mess. Like it would have just been, and even when I first started doing media in 2009, you either went to a studio, a car was sent for you, and you got in the car and you went to a studio, or you had to be on a landline. They wouldn't even let you do it on a cell phone, and that continued for a number of years. And then here we are now where we can do this and people can have studios in their, bedrooms or wherever. And it is a real threat to the establishment, and it really is progressing. And so please continue to support media like Kevin, because this is how we're going to win through this communication effort. So Kevin, I thank you so much, man. It's good to see you. I appreciate all your support. Let me know what happens with that public records request. I'll be interested, and hopefully they don't gem up some excuse.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and let you go. I'm going to wrap up with my audience, but I will just say to you, do they even know, as much as they hate Nader, how much worse it would have been for them in 2000 and 2004 if he had what we have today and what you just described, the technology. I can't imagine, like, all the Twitter threads, all the YouTube videos from all our progressive voices, all of everyone who would have said this is wrong for Democrats to do during the Iraq War, mind you, when everyone was angry at Bush. It would have gained a lot of traction.
I mean, in 2000, he sold out Madison Square Garden a few times. I mean, like, he was doing, and that was based on, how things were 20 some odd years ago. Now, I mean, that's pre-Twitter, pre-Facebook, Instagram. I got a feeling Ralph Nader at his prime would have killed it in his ironic way. He would have been he would have been fantastic on social media. He just would have been. TikTok, imagine TikToks of Ralph. I mean, they would have gotten nuts. So because just the way he is, and I'm not putting him down. I mean, just he would have been perfect for that ironic nature of how he would come across on social media. But you're actually right, Kevin. And that's what we got to keep building, and keep that in mind, that we have these tools that we can fight asymmetrically with. We don't have to rely upon the New York Times reporting for us or getting on CNN. We can do this through a whole host of networks that are already out there and that are only getting stronger and only getting larger.
All right. Well, I know you have an event. So for people who might be catching this live, you have this event at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Right.
And if people are interested in Green Party politics and interested in challenging the two-party system, they should tune in. Is there a place they should go to watch?
Go to my Twitter, Matthew P. Ho, or go to the campaign website, MatthewHoforSenate.org, or the Facebook, Matt for Senate, and you'll find information there. And we'll have a number of current candidates like Delia Barrios from Texas, Robin Harris from Florida, but then also to some of our standard bearers, Howie Hawkins, Ajuma Baraka, Jill Stein. So it'll be a great event. Please join us. Please sign up and register and join us online.
All right. Well, I know you got to walk your dogs. You are a person. You're not just a political operative for the Elias Law Firm. So I'll let you go, and I'll talk to you later, Matthew.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. We'll see you, man.
Bye. All right, everyone. That does it for the interview. I'm just going to do a quick wrap and also thank Justin here for the donations. Really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting independent journalism. Thank you for supporting this kind of a channel that has voices like Matthew, and we are constantly bringing people on. I've had an opportunity in the past week to really get into it and expand the number or increase the number of videos that are being put out. It's really possible that subscribers of this channel feel overwhelmed. I've done a video a day this week, all while covering and writing about the trial against Joshua Schulte, and who was convicted by a jury of leaking CIA hacking materials to WikiLeaks, something that's related to a thing that people know me for, my Assange case coverage. And many, many people who are tuned into this channel follow this channel for updates on the Julian Assange case. And I hope everyone continues to do so. But expanding this, we have the Unauthorized Disclosure Weekly podcast that I do with Rania Kalik, where videos from that are posted here. And I'm working on bringing in more voices. And obviously, that becomes more possible as subscribers increase. So hit that subscribe button and get those alerts. Help me do the hustle and get people here to the channel so that we can boost these interviews that are done with people who deserve our attention, who deserve our interest, much more so than those who are not going to act on our behalf and actually fight for us. And also, I'd include people who are complicit and aren't going to fight the people who are holding us down, because they are trapped. They themselves are captured. They're in the veal pen, so to speak. People like Matthew Ho are not in a veal pen. They don't have to consider what to say about the Supreme Court, whether it's okay to talk about abolishing the Supreme Court or expanding the Supreme Court, or what kind of measures they want to advance after Roe v. Wade is overturned and we lose a constitutional right that's existed for over a half century. Nobody like Matthew Ho has to ask permission from any Democratic Party leaders or leadership or any party leadership about whether he can speak out on certain issues. And so that makes him someone who's authentic. That makes these people individuals who I think we want to link with, and we want to hear from organizations that are helping others on the ground, doing things that are actually making a difference in people's lives. So I try to have interviews with people who are tapped into movements, involved in organizing, but also are not captured by the two-party system as well. And that's in addition to covering the kind of leak prosecutions that I cover, the whistleblower stories that I cover. And that's what we're working on here at Shadowproof. And you're going to see an expansion over the next months, where we have more interviews with people about incarceration, policing, and how do we move away from the prison industrial complex? How do we defund police? How do we consider these struggles and movements and expand on them? Because that is our future. Our future is this, and then we have to have a countervailing force to the rising right-wing proto-fascism of the Republican Party, in which Joe Biden, the Biden White House, and the Democrats in the Senate and the House are not challenging. They're too focused on throwing people out off the ballot like Matthew Ho. They're too focused on trying to protect their own power and presence in politics, and in trying to just fight for their own self-preservation. They're not doing anything for us. They really just take up space. I've been thinking about this, and I think that the Democratic Party is that Democrats are a lot like balls of lint. And I at first I was like, maybe they're more like paperweights. Maybe they're more like paperweights. They hold paper down, and that's about it. And they really can't do anything else. But paperweights actually have some like uh, weight to them, and that would prevent paper from flying in the air. And there's actually some value. They don't hold anything down. Democrats don't. So there's to be their balls of lint that you pull out of your pocket, and then you hold it in your hand. It doesn't really feel like much, and you're not like sure what it is. Like, where does it come from? What is this? Why do I have so much lint in my hand from my pants? Where did this come from? And it's worthless. It can't do anything. And then when you throw it on the ground, it doesn't go anywhere. It moves, but not even moves on the ground like a tumbleweed. It just sort of like floats around and is on the ground and just aimlessly moves about, but never too far. Like, it mostly stays from the area where you dropped it. And like, that's the Democrats for you. The Democrats are really worthless, and they're not trying to do anything. And there's really not much to them. You can see right through them. They're pretty transparent. They're phony. Most of them are frauds. They want you to believe that they're there for you, except they don't do anything to win your support. And it's time to demand much more from the system. And we don't have to reinvent any wheel. There are ways in which we can advance goals and move towards a better society without them. And we can go through them. We can fight what the Republicans are doing, and it doesn't matter if they're in our way or if they want to link arms with Republicans and make it harder for us to advance our goals for social justice. So I truly and honestly believe that we can all just go right through them and stop listening to them. Stop, we don't have to subject ourselves and believe that these voter intimidation campaigns, these harassment campaigns, the sort of things that they do actually have any merit, that they'll really bear fruit, that they're really anything. I mean, they're actually pretty pathetic. Like what they're doing in North Carolina to the Green Party, for the amount of money they're probably spending to go after Matthew Hoh and the Green Party, they've only gotten a few dozen voters to really be scared. And those matter. The fact that those people changed, I'm offended by that. But, over 15,000 people signed that petition. Many of them not Green Party supporters, but people who just believe that there should be democracy, that you can have choices on the ballot. And in the end, they haven't really done that much. And then there's a lot of evidence that can be brought before a federal court that is probably not beholden to a Democratic Party operation like the Elias Law Firm. And, we'll see. We'll see, because federal courts can be surprising. I didn't really expect the federal court to rule in favor of WikiLeaks in the Southern District of New York when the DNC sued. And they sued Russian operatives, they sued WikiLeaks, and they sued the Trump campaign. And they said that they were basically involved in some illicit acts when they shared and published the Clinton campaign emails and the DNC emails in 2016. And the judge said, no, actually, that's First Amendment protected. You have a right to publish hacked materials and share them. So WikiLeaks can do that. And you haven't proven anything. So you may not have faith in institutions. I don't. But I do think that there's a really real possibility here that the federal court may say, hey, there's no due process. And it's pretty brazen what you're doing. You're calling voters and telling them that they need to remove their names off the ballot. And you're pretending to be Green Party people when you're not. So this doesn't look like something that is legitimate at all. And the federal court might just shut it down. And playtime might be over in North Carolina in the next few weeks. And if that happens, and there is good news for the Matthew Hoh campaign and the Green Party in North Carolina, you can come back to this channel and I'll be interviewing Matthew Hoh about that. And then we'll be pushing forward past the ballot access issues and talking about some of the issues in the state of North Carolina and a little bit more with Matthew about, what he's doing, just so you can get a sense of what it's like to have a campaign that is outside of the two-party system and what it can do. And how do we push past that fear of spoilers? How do we push past that idea that we are going to somehow make it harder for Democrats to win and the Republicans are going to get a boost? How do you deal with that culture of among voters and the voter shaming that comes from online culture, where you have groups of people that attack you if you support something other than Democrats and Republicans? What do you do? What do you do? And we have plenty of time in the midterms to think about it, but it's always a part of election madness. It's the worst during presidential election years, but now's the time. There's nobody stepping up who in the Democratic Party wants to challenge Joe Biden, even though he's probably the most unpopular president in my lifetime somehow. Rivals is rivaling Donald Trump in his unpopularity. Most unpopular president among young people, perhaps in the history of the polls, or probably pretty close in the history of polling. So if you care about polls, and a lot of the so-called establishment types, they claim to care about polls. Except when it instructs them to do something different than what they're used to doing. And then those are inconvenient, so they just brush them aside. But these polls are telling us something, and yet we're not witnessing any actions on the part of the progressive faction that knows what they have to do. They know that they have to mobilize, and they have to mobilize some alternative to Joe Biden. And they shouldn't wait for that alternative to be put forward by the Democratic Party establishment. It should come with some kind of push at the grassroots level. And yet, what we've observed over the last 15 to 20 years leads us to recognize that it's not going to come from the grassroots, because they are captured. These organizations that Bernie Sanders got in trouble for calling out for being establishment oriented, like Planned Parenthood, being so linked to the Democratic Party that they can't independently act, and to their own detriment, because actual rights are being abolished in this country because they are so beholden and wed to the Democratic Party that they cannot act for their own agenda and in their own interests. I mean, even Planned Parenthood in Montana has said that they're not going to provide people from out of state abortion medication because they're afraid that there will be prosecutions of people in other states. So rather than letting people who need care make choices on their own, trust that they're making the decisions they want to make, and help to serve the maximum number of people, they're caving to Republican extremism in surrounding states. And also, they're probably going to lose the ability to provide services very soon in Montana because they're so timid and not able to step outside and act in a more bold manner to protect what needs to be protected. And so you're left seeing that it's not going to come from within the Democratic Party. It's not going to come from Joe Biden, obviously. I don't have to convince anybody of that. But it's not going to come from the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. So if someone in 2024 isn't going to, step forward and lead an alternative way, blaze an alternative path that we don't have to just choose between Biden and Trump, then we're going to need a Green Party person, or we're going to need an independent candidate who says, I'm not going to play this anymore between the two parties. Or we're going to have to recognize that those movements and those organizations that are putting together funds, doing what we call mutual aid, helping people, those different issues-based fights, that those are the things that take priority, and we all just disengage from politics, and we let it just be this playground for elites and everyone, and you just have the most depressed voter turnout ever. And we don't put our money into their hands. We don't fund these campaigns that don't amount to anything for us, and we just stay completely withdrawn from the process and focus on our own survival in our communities, which there's a case for doing that, given what we've seen and how much our system is captured by corporations and beholden to these powerful interests. And that's what Matthew Ho is dealing with. He's dealing with that every day. And anyone in the Democratic Party or outside who is challenging those interests, they know where they're expected to stay inside the lines. And when they step out, they know that the target gets placed on their back, and they're told to get back in the lines, get back in the square. And if they don't get back in the square or the veal pen, then what happens to you is they neutralize you. They try to remove you so you no longer can be a challenge to the way that the party conducts politics. So with that, that's my rant. That's the spiel that I have to end this show. I wasn't counting on going on a long comment there, but I did. And I'll put up, since I've got a few people still watching, that if you would like to subscribe to thedissenter.org, this is the newsletter that I curate where you can get coverage of whistleblower stories, updates on the Julian Assange case, and then just shadowproof.com website where you can come for coverage of these issues of incarceration, policing. If I do any coverage of the fight that's going on with the Green Party against the Democratic Party, it will be posted there. These kinds of stories of denial to the ballot, of being blocked, like Matthew Ho's story, are important. So I'm on the lookout for those kinds of things nationwide, whether it's a primary challenge by a Democrat or a Green Party person, because we need to continue to educate and illustrate to people the cutthroat nature of Democratic Party operatives in making it so the status quo remains. This really brutal and cruel status quo, like leaving us locked in, even as we continue to get dragged in a worse direction by Republicans. Whenever we demand that we fight back and do something different, we're told no. We're told no. We run candidates? No. We protest? That's not the way to do it. You're supposed to participate inside the system and run for elections. So then people do, and they say, no, that's not the way to do it. And people are done playing games. I think people are done playing games. So thank you for tuning in. And I talked way too much, but I appreciate those of you watching Matthew Ho's interview, and I'll be back soon with another video on this channel. Until then, you all take care of yourselves.